Ethan had always thought that being a pilot for a small merchant convoy in the outer systems was boring. He spent most of his days fixing engines, charting safe courses through asteroid belts, and delivering supplies between planets. He liked it that way, simple, predictable, and quiet. But that quiet life ended the day he first saw Princess Lyra. The convoy was passing near the Relara station, a massive orbital hub that glimmered like a jewel in the dark of space. Relara Station was famous across the sector for its markets, luxury docks, and the rare chance that high-ranking officials of the Ithari Empire would visit. Ethan had never seen royalty before, except on holonews screens. He was adjusting the plasma conduits of his ship when a sudden warning blared across the station's comm system. Meteor storm incoming. All ships, take emergency precautions. Ethan's eyes widened. The readings on his dashboard showed massive debris heading straight for the station. He had dealt with asteroid fields before, but nothing this big, nothing this fast. The station's alarms screamed a deafening rhythm, lights flickering red and orange. As the chaos spread, Ethan saw a small transport struggling against the force of the storm. It spun wildly, unable to stabilize. And inside that transport was Princess Lyra, her blue-green eyes wide with fear. Ethan's heart pounded. He knew he should stay in his ship, stay safe. But something inside him, a force he could not explain, pushed him forward. Without thinking, he started the engines of his small craft, the Star Hawk, and aimed for the spinning transport. Space was filled with deadly shards of rock and twisted metal, moving like they had minds of their own. But Ethan had something the automated systems of the transport did not: human intuition. He dodged debris with sharp, precise movements, predicting their paths instinctively. "Hang on," he shouted through the comm, though he knew the princess might not hear him. The transport was tumbling toward the station's outer hull. One wrong move would crush it, or them both. Ethan reached the controls, extending the Star Hawk's mechanical arm. He calculated, risked, and lunged. The arm grabbed the transport just in time, halting its spin. Sparks flew as metal scraped metal. The station shook violently from nearby impacts. Lyra looked at him in astonishment. She had never seen a human move so quickly, so fearlessly. She wanted to say something, but words failed her. Ethan's hands were steady as he navigated through the storm, dodging debris, steering them toward a safer docking bay. When they finally landed, the station erupted in cheers. Engineers, pilots, and officials rushed to congratulate Ethan. He barely noticed. His eyes were on the princess. "You saved me," she said finally, her voice soft but clear. "I don't know how to thank you." Ethan shrugged, trying to appear casual. "Just doing what anyone would do." But he knew that was not true. Not anyone would risk life and ship for a stranger, especially one as important as a princess. The station authorities quickly brought him before the royal envoy. The Ithari were tall, elegant, with translucent skin that shimmered under station lights. Their voices had a musical quality, and their eyes seemed to see right through him. "You have performed a rare act of bravery, human," said one envoy. "Princess Lyra owes you her life." Lyra stepped forward. She studied him, her eyes scanning every detail. "You think so little of yourself," she said. "That is unusual for your kind." Ethan laughed nervously. "I just didn't want her to get hurt." "You acted with wisdom, courage, and precision," said the envoy. "We have never seen such actions from any other being in our alliance. You must come to the palace. The queen will wish to meet you." Ethan blinked. The palace. He was just a pilot. He had no idea how to navigate court life, alien politics, or diplomacy. But he could not refuse. This was bigger than him. This was extraordinary. The journey to the palace was unlike anything Ethan had ever imagined. The Ithari capital was built on towering cliffs that floated above a sparkling ocean of green and gold. Bridges of light connected the city, and the air shimmered with tiny, luminescent creatures. The technology was advanced beyond imagination, yet it blended perfectly with nature. Lyra accompanied him, pointing out gardens that floated midair, schools where young Ithari practiced skills humans would call magic, and libraries with holographic knowledge stretching as far as the eye could see. "You must think humans are small and weak," Lyra said, smiling as they walked along a transparent bridge over a glowing canyon. "But you are remarkable, brave, clever, fearless, not like anyone else I have met." Ethan laughed. "I'm just a guy with a ship, that's all." "You're just a guy with a ship just saved my life," she said, her tone gentle but teasing. "That is not just. That is extraordinary." When they reached the palace gates, guards bowed and allowed them entry without question. Ethan noticed the difference immediately. The way the palace shimmered, not just with beauty but with respect for knowledge, skill, and courage. The queen, Lyra's mother, was waiting in the grand hall, surrounded by advisors and foreign ambassadors. She was tall, her presence commanding yet calm. Her eyes studied Ethan as if weighing every thought he had ever had. "You risked your life for my daughter," the queen said, her voice smooth but firm. "That is rare, almost unheard of. Tell me, human, what makes you willing to throw yourself into danger for someone you barely know?" Ethan swallowed. "I don't know," he admitted honestly. "I guess I couldn't just watch her die. I do what I can." The queen's eyes narrowed slightly, thoughtful. "You think little of your actions, yet they speak louder than words. You act with courage, wisdom, and intelligence. That is valuable, very valuable." The palace advisors whispered among themselves, astonished. Humans were rare in their system, and none had ever performed such feats. The queen's recognition was not casual, it carried weight. Lyra smiled at Ethan. "You've made everyone see humans differently today," she said softly. Ethan looked around. The grandeur, the alien elegance, the respect they showed him, it was overwhelming. And yet, he felt a strange sense of belonging. Maybe it was the way the Ithari valued action over status, courage over birthright. Maybe it was the way Lyra had looked at him, not as a stranger but as a hero. That evening, as the palace floated under the twin moons of the Ithari world, Ethan found himself in a guest chamber. He sat by a large window, staring at the glowing city below. He was tired, yes, but his mind raced. What had just happened? How had he, a simple human pilot, managed to do what countless others could not? A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Lyra appeared in the doorway, carrying a small tray of fruit. "You should eat something," she said. "Tomorrow, the Queen will ask you more questions. She wants to understand your mind, your people, your ways. I think she already knows you are extraordinary, but she wants to see if you are more than just lucky." Ethan took the fruit, smiling weakly. "I don't know if I'm extraordinary, I'm just me." "Exactly," Lyra said, smiling. "And that is why you are extraordinary." Ethan laughed softly. For the first time, he felt that being human, being clever, brave, and willing to act, was something that truly mattered, even in a galaxy full of powerful alien civilizations. As he lay down to rest, he realized that his life had changed forever. He had saved a princess, impressed a queen, and unknowingly shown the galaxy what humans could do. And deep down, he felt a spark of excitement. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new tests, and new chances to prove that humans were not just survivors, they were remarkable. Outside, the twin moons of the Ithari planet shone down on the floating palace, casting a soft glow over the city. Somewhere in that light, a human named Ethan had taken his first steps toward becoming more than he had ever imagined. And somewhere in the court, the queen watched, already plotting how she might ensure that this human remained close, because she knew that humans, small as they were, could achieve things even the most advanced aliens could not imagine. The next morning, Ethan woke to the soft light of the Ithari sun streaming through the crystal windows of his guest chamber. He stretched and rubbed his eyes. Even after the events of the previous day, it still felt unreal that he was in the palace of an alien civilization, treated not as a mere visitor, but as someone respected, someone important. Lyra entered quietly, her presence calm and graceful. "Come," she said, "the Queen wishes to see you again." Ethan followed her through corridors that glowed with a gentle, shifting light. The walls were lined with alien plants that pulsed softly, reacting to the touch of passers-by. Floating orbs hovered above, projecting images of history, art, and science, an endless flow of knowledge that seemed alive. Ethan's jaw dropped as he walked, amazed by the beauty and intelligence of the place. "The palace, it's incredible," he said, his voice low. "I've never seen anything like it," Lyra smiled. "It is centuries of work blending technology with nature, but it is not just beauty that matters here. Knowledge, courage, and wisdom are valued even more. That is why the Queen wishes to speak with you. She wishes to understand humans through you." When they entered the grand hall, the Queen sat in a high chair carved from shimmering crystal. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, studied Ethan as if weighing every detail. Around her, the council of advisors, foreign ambassadors, and scholars observed him silently. "You saved my daughter," the Queen said again, her voice calm but carrying authority. "And you did so without hesitation. That courage alone is remarkable. But I am curious, what guides humans to act so bravely when the risk is so great?" Ethan swallowed. "I guess humans value life and we try to help when we can. We don't always succeed, but we try. Maybe that's why I acted. I couldn't just watch someone die when I could help." The Queen's expression softened slightly. "Humans are different from many species we have known. You act on instinct, yet your instinct is guided by reasoning and compassion. That is rare. You are not like others." Lyra stepped closer to Ethan. "They do not understand humans fully, but I do. And that is why I wanted you here, Ethan. The Queen will wish to test your mind, your ideas, and your skills. If you succeed, humans may earn respect in ways no other species has achieved." Ethan felt both nervous and excited. He had always relied on his instincts, his ability to think fast and solve problems. But this was different. This was not a dangerous rescue in space. This was a challenge of intellect and ingenuity. The Queen gestured toward a large table in the center of the hall. On it lay a holographic model of the planet's energy network, an intricate system of power stations, conduits, and energy flows that kept the floating cities alive. "This network is failing in several regions," the Queen explained. "If it is not repaired soon, entire sectors of the planet may face shortages. We have technology far beyond humans, yet we cannot solve this problem. Perhaps a human mind can see what we cannot." Ethan's eyes widened. He had studied engineering, mechanics, and pilot systems all his life, but this was something entirely new. I can try," he said. "Good," said the Queen. "You will have access to our engineers and resources. Show us what humans can do." Over the next few hours, Ethan worked tirelessly. He moved between holographic projections, discussing the problem with Ithari engineers. Their technology was advanced, almost magical to his eyes, but he quickly realized that the principles were the same: flow, energy, and balance. He began proposing adjustments, rerouting conduits, optimizing energy flows, and introducing small modifications that increased efficiency. The Ithari engineers watched in astonishment. Ethan's ideas were unconventional. He suggested approaches that no Ithari had considered, not because they were less intelligent, but because they were too traditional, too bound by custom and procedure. "You think differently," one engineer said quietly to the Queen. "He sees the network not as a machine but as a living system. That is unique." By the end of the day, a critical sector of the planet's network was stabilized. Energy flowed evenly, cities lit brightly, and the floating gardens thrived. The Queen observed silently, her eyes reflecting approval. "You have done well," she said finally. "Not only have you saved a part of our planet, but you have shown us the value of human thought. Humans are small, fragile, and limited in number. Yet your mind is vast, creative, and capable. You have earned respect. Lyra's eyes sparkled. I told you, she whispered. You are extraordinary. Ethan felt a rush of pride, but also humility. He had done what he could, yes, but he was still a human, far from home, in a world that was not his. Yet for the first time, he felt that being human meant something extraordinary in a universe that often underestimated them. As the days passed, Ethan learned more about the Athari people and their world. He discovered floating schools where young Athari studied advanced sciences, arts, and philosophy. He visited laboratories where experiments on energy and gravity pushed the boundaries of knowledge. Everywhere he went, he applied his skills, tweaking, testing, improving. And everywhere he left a mark. But it wasn't just technical skill that impressed the Athari. It was Ethan's human way of thinking. He asked questions, challenged assumptions respectfully, and solved problems by combining logic with creativity. Where others saw impossible systems, he saw patterns. Where others hesitated, he acted. One afternoon, while helping the princess with a delicate energy calibration in a floating garden, Ethan noticed Lyra looking at him with admiration. You see the world differently, she said softly. It's not just your mind, Ethan. It's your spirit. Humans, you fight for what matters even when it seems hopeless. You care in ways we sometimes forget to care. Ethan smiled, feeling both embarrassed and proud. I guess humans value life, and we try to protect it even if we're small or weak. That's all I can say. Lyra shook her head, laughing lightly. That is enough. That is why you are remarkable. You are not perfect, but your courage, your curiosity, and your kindness, they make you shine brighter than many of my own people. Meanwhile, word of Ethan's deeds spread across the palace. Scholars, diplomats, and advisors began consulting him on matters beyond engineering. They asked his opinion on negotiations, trade, and problem-solving strategies. Ethan, a simple human pilot, had become a symbol of ingenuity and reliability, a living proof that humans, though few and fragile, could make an extraordinary difference. Then came the day of the Palace Council. Ambassadors from neighboring worlds arrived, discussing treaties and conflicts. The Queen, recognizing the value of Ethan's perspective, invited him to sit at the council table. You will observe and speak if you wish, she said. Humans have insights that even the most advanced species often lack. Ethan listened carefully, absorbing every word. When a dispute arose over energy distribution between cities, he spoke up. Perhaps instead of dividing resources equally, we could adjust the flow according to need, he suggested. We can track usage patterns and predict demand before shortages occur. The council members paused. No one had suggested such a solution. The Queen smiled and the ambassadors nodded, realizing the merit in his approach. By the end of the meeting, a new energy plan was approved, one inspired entirely by a human mind. Afterward, Lyra found him in the palace gardens. You are changing how they see humans, she said, her eyes glowing with pride. You're showing them that size, number, or appearance does not determine value. Only courage, wisdom, and the will to act matter. Ethan laughed softly. I'm just a pilot. I didn't think I could make this much difference. Humans always underestimate themselves, Lyra said. That is why you are extraordinary. You act without seeking praise, yet you leave a mark bigger than anyone expects. That night, as Ethan gazed out over the floating city, he realized something profound. In his world, humans were small, often overlooked and underestimated. But in this galaxy, his courage, ingenuity, and willingness to act mattered in ways he had never imagined. He had become more than a visitor. He had become a bridge between species, a living example of human potential. And somewhere in the palace, the Queen watched, her eyes calculating. She understood that humans, rare and fragile as they were, could change the course of events with nothing but their minds, their hearts, and their courage. She smiled quietly. Tomorrow she would speak with Ethan again. And tomorrow She would begin the process of ensuring that this remarkable human stayed close, not just for the princess, but for the entire planet. Ethan, meanwhile, slept soundly that night, dreaming not of home but of possibilities, of a universe that was bigger, brighter, and more alive than he had ever imagined. He had survived a storm, saved a princess, and earned respect. And in the process, he had discovered something even more important. Humans, small as they were, could shine brilliantly in a galaxy full of wonders. Ethan had settled into palace life more comfortably than he expected, but comfort did not mean ease. Every day brought new challenges, new wonders, and new opportunities to show what a human could do. From repairing energy grids to advising engineers and mediating disputes, Ethan had already proven his worth. Yet, nothing had prepared him for the attention of the Queen herself. It started on a quiet morning. Ethan was working in the palace's central innovation lab, adjusting the calibration of a floating energy conduit when an assistant entered. "Sir Ethan," she said, bowing slightly, "the Queen requests your presence in the council chambers." Ethan blinked. "Me, again?" The assistant nodded. "Yes, your Highness believes your insight is needed." He took a deep breath, trying to calm the fluttering in his chest. The Queen was no ordinary monarch. She was wise, powerful, and known across systems for her intellect and judgment. If she had summoned him personally, it meant something important. The council chambers were grand beyond words. Massive crystalline pillars reflected soft sunlight streaming through the windows, and the floor shimmered like liquid glass. Ambassadors from multiple worlds were already present, seated according to their rank and importance. The Queen sat at the head of the table, her eyes scanning the room and finally resting on Ethan. "You have proven your courage and ingenuity," she said, her voice calm yet commanding. "But the challenges ahead are not only technical. The Athari people face complex social, political, and environmental issues. I wish to test your abilities further. Will you accept this responsibility, human?" Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, Your Highness, I will do my best." A murmur ran through the chamber. Humans were rare guests, and rarely were they trusted with matters of state. Yet here he was, seated at the head of the council table, ready to be judged not by birth, but by merit. The Queen's challenge began immediately. She presented a scenario. Several floating districts were experiencing power shortages due to unforeseen environmental changes. The districts were home to schools, hospitals, markets, and homes. If the shortages continued, social unrest could spread. "Using only the resources available to you," the Queen instructed. "Find a solution that maintains energy balance, satisfies the population, and prevents disruption. You have 1 day." Ethan studied the holographic display, analyzing patterns, energy flows, and the district's needs. His mind raced. He knew the systems were advanced, far beyond anything he had seen before, but the underlying principles were not different from those of human engineering: efficiency, balance, and optimization. He called together a team of Athari engineers and analysts. They worked through the day and into the night. Ethan proposed rerouting energy flows temporarily, creating a flexible priority system for hospitals and schools, and implementing small automated adjustments to prevent overloads. Some engineers were skeptical. "This is too risky," one said. "Our systems are designed to be rigid. Flexibility could fail." Ethan shook his head. "Rigid systems fail when conditions change. We need to think ahead. We need to adapt. Humans survive because we adapt." Slowly, the engineers agreed to try his plan. By the next morning, energy levels stabilized. The floating districts glowed once again, and citizens went about their day without noticing the near disaster that had been averted. The Queen observed silently from her seat. After the council session ended, she called Ethan to her private chambers. "You have done well," she said. "Not only have you solved a technical problem, but you have shown understanding of social dynamics, foresight, and leadership." These are qualities rarely found in one individual. Ethan felt a flush of pride but also unease. He had not expected such direct praise from a ruler. I only did what seemed right, he said humbly. That is what makes humans remarkable, the queen replied. Your species acts with conscience and creativity. You do not blindly follow tradition. You think, you adapt, and you act. That is why I insist that you remain close to the royal family, not as a servant, not as a guest, but as a trusted advisor and protector. Ethan's eyes widened. Me? You want me to stay here permanently? The queen nodded. Yes, your presence benefits this planet in ways I could not have anticipated, and I believe your people, the humans, have much to offer the galaxy. I wish to ensure that we learn from you. The weight of her words sank in. Ethan, a simple human pilot, was being asked to stay in an alien palace, not out of duty, but because the queen saw value in what he represented: human ingenuity, courage, and morality. Lyra appeared at the door, smiling softly. You've done it again, she whispered. You've earned respect that no one thought humans could achieve. Ethan shook his head, half laughing, half awed. I'm not sure I deserve it, I'm just me. That is exactly why you are extraordinary, Lyra said. You act without pride, yet your actions inspire. You show that even the smallest among us can make a difference. Over the following weeks, Ethan's role in the palace expanded. He began advising on matters beyond engineering: diplomatic negotiations, social planning, and even trade agreements. He introduced simple human methods for problem solving: observation, questioning, and small experiments before committing to large decisions. The Athari, accustomed to rigid procedures, were amazed. Humans, they realized, were flexible, creative, and courageous. Ethan became a bridge between worlds, showing that size or number did not determine influence. Thought, heart, and action did. One evening, as he walked with Lyra through the palace gardens, she spoke quietly. Do you realize what you've done, Ethan? You've changed how the Athari see humans. They respect your mind, your courage, your willingness to act. You've shown them that humans are more than fragile bodies. They are thinkers, innovators, and problem solvers. Ethan paused, staring at the floating gardens below. I never expected this, he admitted. I thought humans were small, unimportant. Out here we're just a minor species, but somehow I feel valued, like we can matter. You do matter, Lyra said, smiling. Not because of your strength, but because of your mind, your spirit, and your courage. That is why my mother insists you stay. That is why the Queen sees humans differently now. Indeed, the Queen had begun speaking of Ethan's presence to other rulers. His ingenuity, courage, and calm thinking under pressure became a symbol of humanity, proof that even a small species could leave a significant mark on the galaxy. Then came a test that truly surprised him. The Queen summoned Ethan to oversee a diplomatic discussion with a neighboring planet. The neighboring ambassadors were skeptical of humans, having never trusted or worked with one before. Ethan listened patiently as they argued, noting each concern and each point of hesitation. When the discussion reached a deadlock, he spoke calmly. Perhaps instead of seeing our differences as obstacles, we can see them as strengths, he suggested. What if we combine your advanced systems with human adaptability? Together we could create a plan that works better than either of us alone. The room fell silent. His words were simple, but they carried insight. Slowly, the ambassadors began nodding. By the end of the session, a plan was agreed upon that satisfied all parties. Lyra, standing nearby, whispered, See, humans think differently. That is why you shine. Ethan felt a quiet pride. He had never sought recognition or power. He had only acted to help, to solve problems, to do what was right. And yet, that simple way of thinking had earned him respect across an alien civilization. The Queen watched him that night from her observation balcony. She understood the potential humans had. If nurtured, guided, and respected, they could influence the galaxy not through sheer numbers or strength, but through ingenuity, courage, and moral clarity. She had insisted on keeping Ethan close not only for Lyra, but for the benefit of her people. Ethan, unaware of her full plans, felt only the excitement and wonder of a life that had become extraordinary. He had gone from a simple pilot to a valued advisor in an alien court. He had saved a princess, solved problems that baffled centuries of Ithari knowledge, and shown that humans could rise to challenges far beyond what anyone expected. As he looked out over the glowing city, floating above the emerald seas and crystal cliffs, he realized something remarkable. The galaxy was vast, full of wonders, dangers, and civilizations beyond imagination. And humans, small, fragile, underestimated, could stand out, make a difference, and inspire respect. Tomorrow, he would face new challenges, new tests, and new adventures. But tonight, Ethan allowed himself a quiet moment of pride. He had risked his life for a princess, solved impossible problems, and impressed a queen. He had shown what humans could do when they acted with courage, intelligence, and heart. And somewhere in the palace, the queen smiled, already planning the next step, how to ensure this extraordinary human remained close, shaping not only the future of the princess, but perhaps the entire planet. Ethan, the human pilot, was no longer just a visitor. He was a symbol of human ingenuity and courage, a reminder that even the smallest species could leave a mark on the universe. The sun rose over the Ithari capital, casting a golden glow across the floating city. For Ethan, the new day felt different. He had grown used to palace life, yes, but he still awoke with a sense of wonder. Every corridor, every crystal pillar, every garden and floating terrace reminded him that this world was unlike any other he had known. Today, however, was not just another day of learning or assisting. Today, the Queen had summoned him for an audience that would change his life permanently. Ethan made his way to the Grand Hall, where the council, ambassadors, and Lyra were already gathered. The Queen sat at the head of the table, her presence as commanding as ever. Her eyes scanned the assembly and then, finally, settled on him. "You have proven, beyond any doubt, the value of your species," she began. Her voice carried authority that filled the room. "You have saved my daughter, stabilized critical systems, and mediated disputes with wisdom and fairness. For these reasons, I insist, no, I decree, that you remain here within the royal court as a permanent advisor and representative of humanity." A murmur spread through the chamber. The ambassadors exchanged surprised glances, the council members whispered among themselves, and Lyra's eyes widened in delight. Ethan himself froze. "Me, permanent," he stammered. I'm just a pilot. I never imagined, I never expected." The Queen's gaze was steady. "You underestimate yourself, Ethan. That is precisely why humans are remarkable. You act with courage, thought, and heart, yet you do not seek recognition. You solve problems that others cannot, and in doing so, you have earned not only respect but responsibility. Your presence will benefit not only my daughter and my people, but also the understanding between our species and yours." Lyra stepped closer and whispered softly, "I told you, humans are extraordinary. You've shown it, Ethan. You've done it." Ethan shook his head, overwhelmed. "I don't know if I deserve this, but I will do my best. I promise." The Queen inclined her head. "That is all I ask." In the following days, Ethan began fully integrating into palace life, not just as a guest, but as a trusted member of the court. He advised on diplomacy, trade, and technology. He introduced human problem-solving methods to the Ithari: observation, testing, adaptability, and creative thinking. Where the Ithari were rigid and traditional, Ethan's ideas were flexible, practical, and surprisingly effective. One morning, the palace faced a challenge unlike any before. A neighboring planet requested urgent assistance with energy distribution, claiming their systems were failing. The situation was tense, as other ambassadors feared conflict. The Queen turned to Ethan. "You have handled similar crises," she said. Your insight is needed again. Ethan examined the data, the reports, and the patterns of the neighboring planet's energy system. His mind worked quickly, connecting dots that others had ignored. He proposed a plan that combined Ithari technology with human adaptive strategies. The ambassadors listened, skeptical at first. But as Ethan explained the step-by-step solution, demonstrating both efficiency and safety, their skepticism turned to admiration. By the end of the session, a plan was approved that ensured stability for the neighboring planet without compromising Ithari resources. Lyra, standing beside him, whispered with a smile, "Humans think differently. That is why you shine. You see solutions where others see problems." Ethan smiled softly. "I just look at what's in front of me. I try to make sense of it. Maybe that's all humans do differently." But the Queen knew better. Humans were not only problem solvers. They were adaptable, courageous, and willing to act for the good of others. She had seen it firsthand in Ethan, and she was determined to ensure that humans earned recognition throughout the galaxy. The Queen arranged a grand ceremony, inviting ambassadors, scholars, and leaders from across nearby star systems. The palace terraces floated high above the sparkling oceans, glowing gardens and waterfalls reflecting the light of two suns. Ethan, normally humble and shy, stood with Lyra by his side as the Queen began her address. "Today," the Queen announced, her voice echoing across the terraces, "we honor a human named Ethan. He has saved my daughter, protected my people, and shown courage, wisdom, and intelligence beyond expectation. His actions prove that humans, though few in number and fragile in form, possess qualities that can inspire respect and admiration across the galaxy." The crowd erupted in applause. Scholars nodded, ambassadors bowed, and even the palace staff looked on with amazement. Ethan felt a strange warmth in his chest, not pride exactly, but a deep sense of belonging. Lyra took his hand and whispered, "You've done more than save me, Ethan. You've shown my people, and now the galaxy, that humans are remarkable. That is why my mother insists on you staying here. That is why you will always have a place in this world." Ethan looked out at the terraces, at the floating city, and at the bright oceans below. He realized that being human meant more than survival. It meant courage, creativity, and the will to act. It meant that even the smallest species could leave a mark on the universe. In the weeks that followed, Ethan continued to work with the Queen and the court. He introduced new strategies for energy management, improved communication between planets, and even helped design new floating gardens that combined Ithari technology with human engineering concepts. Everywhere he went, he left an imprint of human ingenuity. The Ithari people began to change subtly. They had always valued knowledge and wisdom, but now they saw the power of courage, adaptability, and creative thinking. Humans, once considered minor, fragile, and insignificant, were now respected. They were valued for their mind, heart, and spirit. One quiet evening, Ethan walked with Lyra along the palace terraces. The twin moons reflected in the crystal gardens, and the city below shimmered with life. "You've changed things," Lyra said softly. "Not just for the palace, but for my people. Humans are respected now because of you, because of what you did and how you think and how you care." Ethan shook his head, smiling humbly. "I didn't do it for respect. I just acted when I thought it was right. I never imagined it would lead to this." "That is exactly why it worked," Lyra said, her eyes shining. "You act without ego, without expectation. That is the essence of being human and why we admire you." Ethan felt a quiet joy. He had traveled far from Earth, far from his simple life as a pilot, and yet he had discovered something profound. Humans could shine brightly, even among the stars. It was not through strength or numbers, but through courage, thought, and action. The Queen, observing from a distance, smiled quietly. She had seen countless species across the galaxy, but humans were unique. Ethan's actions had shown her what she already suspected, that humans could influence the galaxy not by force, but by ingenuity, morality, and bravery. From that day on, Ethan remained at the palace, working alongside the Queen, Lyra, and the court. He became a trusted advisor, a bridge between humans and the Athari, and a symbol of what humanity could achieve. And in a quiet moment, standing on the palace terrace and looking at the glowing city and the twin suns above, Ethan realized the truth. Humans, though small and fragile, could leave a mark on the universe that no one could ignore. He had risked his life for a princess, impressed a queen, and shown an entire civilization that courage, ingenuity, and heart could matter more than anything else. He had become a testament to humanity's potential. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, and humans were just one of countless species. But through Ethan's actions, humans were no longer overlooked. They were respected. They were valued. They were recognized. And somewhere in the palace, the queen whispered to herself, a small smile on her face, "The humans are remarkable indeed." Ethan, the pilot who once thought himself ordinary, had become extraordinary. Not because of weapons or power, but because of the qualities that made him human: courage, intelligence, and a heart willing to act for what was right. And that was enough to change the galaxy.